Alright, so welcome back to Empires of the Void 2. Now, before we talk about moving and attacking, because in the last video we talked about mostly the setup of the game, there are various actions that you can take on your turn. So let's take a look at the action track here on the actual rule book, because the action track is actually on the board over there, but because it's so far away, it's really hard to even see what those words even say. So here it is close up on the rule book. So we have a variety of different actions that you can take on your turn. You can choose to move and attack. You can choose to research and build. You can choose card action, or diplomacy. You can choose recruit, and there's something cool if you're the player that chose the recruit. And then there's also scavenge. Those are the 5 different actions. The player who's first is going to get the commander token. And the commander token is this orange token here. So you're just going to basically put this on your player board to indicate that you are going first. And then you're going to take this huge, nice token here, and you're going to put it on one of the 5 actions on the player board. So like, for instance, let's say I was to put it here on move and attack. Then that would be the action I would take. I would take that action, move and attack. I would move my spaceship. I would either attack it or go into orbit. If it's a big planet, I would either attack it or I would go into orbit of the planet. Okay? That's moving and attacking. If I choose to attack, then there's a lot of stuff that happens with attacking, obviously. If it's an uninhabited world, attacking it is very simple, very fast and easy, because there's no, unless a player is there, there is no problem with attacking a planet that has no inhabitants. And then, after my action is done, everybody else has an option. Okay? Everybody else, if you're playing with more than 2 people, it's very evident that some people might choose to do a different possibility. But they can also choose to follow what you do, so they may also move and attack on their turn after you, okay? Or they can choose to refresh, so if they don't want to move and attack, they can choose to refresh, which is very different from moving and attacking, obviously. Or they may pay extra command to do one of the other possible actions. Now remember, if you don't have a lot of command, it may not be possible to do some of this stuff because you have to use an extra command, and you only have so much available and you're using a lot. And if you haven't refreshed in a while, you probably may not have much command left. So, but that is an option you can do. You can do one of the other actions. Then after everybody has either chosen to follow what the person who has the commander token, this thing, okay? After everyone has chosen to either follow or refresh or use their command to do something else, then the next player in line, okay, so player who's basically second, they're going to get the commander token, okay? And then they are going to choose a different action. Okay, so maybe they'll choose, last time it was move and attack, so one thing they can't choose is move and attack. So they'd have to choose one of the other 4 here instead. Maybe they choose research and build, for instance, and then they would put that there. And then they would take that action, and everyone else would either have to follow what they did, refresh, or pay a command to do something else. And that's going to happen. So everyone's going to get the option to pick one of the 5 from the action track that obviously wasn't picked last time, and then everyone else can either follow or refresh or pay extra command to do something else. So that's pretty cool. I really like that aspect. It almost kind of reminds me of Tiny Towns, the Master Builder. When you choose a particular material, everyone else has to pick that material, right? That's kind of like, it's kind of similar to that in that thinking, but you at least get more options. You can choose to refresh instead or pay command to do something else. So that's basically what's going to happen with that. Now, another thing I didn't talk about in the setup, but when you set up the game, each of these 5 action slots, scavenge, recruit, diplomacy, which is also card action, research and build, and move and attack, each of them are also going to get 3 credits. So the player who chooses one of those actions, they're also going to take that first 3 credits to add it to their currency pile, basically. So there is an incentive to choosing one of the other actions when it's your turn to obviously move this to another of the 5 actions on the action track, because then you can obviously be the player that gets the 3 credits on the next one. But it's only for the setup, so once the 3 credits are taken off, there isn't another 3 credits put back on to the same one. So it's a one-time thing. So everyone, if you're playing for a 4-player game, at least everyone is going to get at least one of those 3 credits, which is pretty nice, probably. Now, of course, maybe not, because if they choose to not do something that hasn't been done yet, like scavenge, for instance, or something like that, then that'd be maybe a different story. But so there is definitely an incentive to doing certain actions, at least in the beginning of the game. So I didn't put the money on there yet, but that would be part of the setup as well. So, now, moving and attacking. Let's talk about that. So, let's say I'm going to move, and I'm going to have to move the camera a bit on this one. Let's say I'm going to move my spaceship, the world ship here. Let's say I decide to move here to this uninhabited world. Doing so is the cost of 1 command. So, let me show you a close-up of my command tract. So now I pay 1 command to do that, move. So that means, until I refresh, I could move a total of 3 more times, maximum. And then I would be done, okay? Obviously, there's other things you can do with command besides that. Now I've moved to this planet, and I'm going to stop there. I don't have to. I could actually move to another planet. If I choose to stop at this planet, I automatically get this good. I'm not going to look at it because, I might play this game. I get to automatically look at this good, and then I automatically also get to reveal that Explorer token as well. And the Explorer tokens have a lot of benefits. So there might be some additional benefits for doing that. And then, because I'm attacking the world here, I get to claim that I own it. Okay? So I get to put one of these cubes on the planet, and there's like a little spot here. Okay? And I get to put that cube there. Now, what does that mean? If I choose to occupy that planet and control it, what does that mean for me as a benefit? Well, when the scoring takes place, so when that scorecard shows up in the power deck here, when that scorecard shows up, for every uninhabited planet I control, I get a victory point at that exact moment. Okay? That means if I lose a planet to another player, then I won't get that extra victory point when the scorecard shows up because I don't own it anymore. And the same can be said for inhabited worlds as well. If I attack the planet and win the battle, I get to put one of my nice little cubes on there again to identify that I control the planet. And then I will get 2 victory points for each planet that I control that is inhabited as well. So there's definitely some benefits to attacking planets because now I'm getting victory points, while the player who decides not to attack and just use diplomacy all the time, they can get victory points as well, but there's definitely some benefits to obviously attacking. Now, if you decide to attack in a planet, if you have any influence on that planet, you lose all of your influence. So let me show you what influence is real quick. So this is to identify that I have 1 influence on Tanfu, the reptile, the lizard people of this world here. I have 1 influence. If I attack Tanfu, whether it's my world ship or my star sloop, or if I leave some units or something here, if I attack, I lose my influence, all of it. So if I have a lot of these nice cylinder cubes here, or cylinders, if I have a lot of them, I lose all of them. So obviously, if I have a lot of influence on a world, it makes little sense to attack it. Now, if I have influence, what does that mean? Well, if I have influence, there are some awesome benefits. One of those benefits is I will get access, and let me just carefully grab this here. I will get access to one of these here. Now, let's say I had an influence here on Corlozon, which is this purplish planet up here where I'm sort of pointing at, okay? If I had an influence there, I would automatically get this because they would be my ally, okay? And then I get this cool ability because I have these guys as my ally. I also would get access to these units here, and I could recruit these units for each of the different planets. So here's like the reptile people, for instance. So if I had influence on Tanfu, I would actually claim all of these, and then when I decide to recruit a unit, I could recruit them instead of my guys instead. And there's obviously benefits to doing that. They cost more money too, obviously, to recruit, but you can do that. Now, if another player puts influence on there, okay, if they're tied with you, so if my opponent, the Parasites of Screech, were now able to put an influence onto Tanfu, okay, and this is the wrong cube, but if they had, this is the wrong cube, this isn't the cylinder, but if they had an influence on there, they would be tied with me, but I would still get to keep my action, my special ability token, because I'm allied with them. And I would also get to keep the units as well, okay? They wouldn't get them because they just tied with me. But if they were to get more influence than me on Tanfu, they would take that token from me, okay? Let's just say this was the token for Tanfu. They would take the token, and they would take all the units that I did not purchase yet. They would take all of them, and the only way I would get those tokens back and those would be to not only to actually get 3 influence on that planet, to get more than what they have. So there are benefits to gaining influence, to gaining allies as well, okay? That is definitely something that can be done. If you're allied with a planet, if you have the most influence for a planet, you're also going to get victory points when you score. So you can get 2 victory points for Tanfu here, and it depends on the planet. Sentina over here, you can get 3 victory points if you have the most influence on Sentina. And you don't even have to have a lot of influence. If you have 1 influence, and you're the only one that has influence on that planet, even though it's just 1, you're still going to get the victory points because you have the most influence on the planet. So that's really cool. I really like that a lot. So there is a benefit to obviously having influence on your planets. But if you're moving and attacking a planet, you're not using diplomacy whatsoever. In fact, diplomacy is a separate action. It's separate from moving. So if you're moving, you can choose to attack, but you can't use diplomacy while you're moving around unless, you take an action or play a particular card or something like that, or complete a particular mission or something like that. You are not likely to get much influence by doing that because it's a separate action. But that's still pretty interesting. And then, of course, another thing I didn't mention is you're going to put one of these influence cylinders here. There's a scorecard track on the board, on the right side of the board here, and you're going to put one of these there to indicate, how many victory points you have. I didn't do that yet, but that's something else you can do with the cylinders, is you're going to use one of them to keep track of score. Now, we've talked about moving, so what if I decided to attack? Remember, I do get to put a cube on that uninhabited planet because I attacked it. In a sense, I attacked it. Okay? Now, let me just put one on there as a demonstration. Okay, there we go. So now we have that there for attacked. Now, if I control a planet, whether it's inhabited or uninhabited, I can put bases on those planets. And I don't even have to have my world ship. So here's my world ship here. My world ship or my units, they don't have to be on the planet to control it. So I can be, oh, I don't know, over here on Tanfu. I can be over here and I can still control the planet, okay? So that's something that's also really interesting to note, that you can do. So you don't have to be even on the planet or even leave any units on the planet to do that. That's pretty cool. Okay, let me fix this. Hold on. Okay, because I'm going to be moving it in a second here anyways. Okay, so, but let's say I decided I wasn't going to, move there, okay? I wasn't going to stay there. So I used one command to move to that planet. Okay, let's say I want to go here next. This is a movement as well. So, let me fix that. Okay, so this is sort of like an asteroid belt right there. Okay, that's another movement, so I'd have to pay one command to move there, first of all. Okay. You'll notice there's a dice here. I'd have to roll a dice, okay? And if I roll a 3 or higher, I would get to move on. If I don't roll a 3 or higher, my ship would be forced to move back to the location I was just at. So I'd have to move back to the planet. But for a cost of another command, I could try to go through that asteroid belt again. Okay? But obviously I'm using a lot of command to do that. So that may not be something I could do all the time. But let's say I decide I made it, let's say I rolled the dice and I made it through the asteroid belt. Now I have an option. I'm going to move here. I have an option. I can move to this planet here in orbit, or I can move to the planet and land. If I decide I don't want to attack the planet, then I just put my ship here in orbit, okay? Now the cool thing is you can drop off units in orbit to protect the planet, to keep opponents from going here, because then they'd have to attack you, and etc., etc. And if you get attacked and you lose the battle, you don't lose your units in the battle. You're just forced to move everyone to a safe location. Okay? So if I was to attack Tanfu and lost the battle, my spaceship, my Starfarer, my Star Sloop, they would just move, obviously, back to a safe location. Probably here. Unless I had one of those green cubes here and controlled that planet, then I could go there because it's safe to go there. But that's what that's going to do. Now, this is already a pretty long video, so let's talk about attacking. If I choose to attack Tanfu, and let's just say I never had the influence there to start with, as I certainly wouldn't want to waste any influence. If I choose to attack Tanfu, I'm going to have to attack the inhabitants, okay? So let's get a closer up view, if we can, of the Tanfoons here. So the Tanfoons, which are these lizard people, you'll notice they have a symbol here with a 1 next to a dice, and then they have a 3 next to this symbol, which sort of looks like fire. That's power, okay? So that means they get to roll a dice, and they have a power of 3. Okay, so what does that mean, you're thinking? Well, if you look at my Star Sloop here, and my Starfarer, I have my Star Sloop has no power. It has 0 power. But it does have 2 dice, okay? It does have 2 dice, so I can roll 2 dice with it. And if I was to attack Tanfu, I would use the Star Sloop, and I would use the Starfarer to attack, and so I'd have a power of 1, and I'd get to roll an extra die for the Starfarer. So I'd get to roll 3 dice, and I'd have a power of 1. Versus my opponent here, the Tanfoons, they have a power of 3, and they get to roll 1 dice. Then, what you'll do is you will roll the dice, and let's say I'm rolling 3 dice. It increases my chances. If I'm rolling 3 dice, it increases my chances of getting a high number, because you're only going to take the highest die of what you rolled out of the equation. So if this is what I rolled, I would take the highest die, which is 6, out of the roll. I'd add a power of 6, plus I would add a power of 1 for my Starfarer here, so that would be a power of 7. Versus my opponent, who already had a power of 3, because it's the Tanfoons, and let's say they rolled a 4, now they'd have a power of 7. So it's 7 versus 6. So it almost looks like they win. But that's not all that happens. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take one of these 3 power cards you have, probably one you're not going to use for an event or for a mission or an action or something like that, and you're going to add the highest number of which card you choose, and then you're going to draw from the power deck the top card, and that will be added to the total. So, for instance, I was saying the Tanfoons have a power of 7. We would reveal the 2 cards at the same time. So I'm going to reveal this one here at the same time as... Ooh, that's the events. Sorry. Let's pick this one. Oh, I drew the scorecard. Okay, here we go. 3 and 4. Okay, so now the Tanfoons, they have a power of 10, and my power is also 10, because it's a 4 plus a 6. So the defenders win, and I would lose the battle. Okay, so that's what you're going to do. So you're going to have these power cards. At the end, you're going to have a dice that's going to indicate power, and then the more little tokens you have here that have power on them is going to be added to the equation. So these, then these, and then one of the cards you choose from your 3 cards. If you don't have any, then obviously you can't use this as a power, and your opponent will still have the extra power. So you don't want that either. So that's something to note for attacking. So that's basically how attacking is going to work. Now let's say if I had won the battle. If I had won the battle, I would get to put a cube, saying I control the planet. Okay, I get to put my cube there, and then if my opponent, the actual player I'm playing against, decided to attack this world, they wouldn't be attacking the inhabitants, they'd be attacking me, because I control the planet, okay? And then I would also get the good that is here on the planet's surface. If you want the good that's here on the planet's surface, you're going to have to attack it. That's the only way you're going to get this good. This good here in orbit, however, can only be obtained if you move the ship into orbit, okay? So there's some benefits to just simply going in orbit to attacking, okay? You can never land on a planet unless you're attacking it. So if you don't want to accidentally attack them, make sure you put your starship, your world ship, or starship in orbit, because that's the safe location to move to, usually. That's pretty much everything I'm going to explain in this video. I think I covered moving and attacking pretty well, so thank you guys for watching this one. And next time we'll talk about research and build.